Hello and welcome to Big Think Live. I'm Jason Gotts. Our guest today is two-time Tony and Olivier award-winning actor Jonathan Pryce. He's widely known for his leading roles in the films Brazil, Evita, the musical Miss Saigon, and much, much more. He's currently appearing at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in a new production of Harold Pinter's play The Caretaker, which has won glowing reviews for its penetrating new take on the play and for Pryce's tour de force performance as a repellent, darkly funny, and deeply human Davis. Jonathan Pryce, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So you've acted in Hollywood films, musicals, Shakespeare, television commercials. What drew you to doing this particular production of a 1960 Harold Pinter play now at this moment in your career and in 2012?
Well, it started 2009 in England. I was doing a television show with the director Christopher Morahan, and as we came to the end of that week, he asked me if I'd ever thought of playing Davis in The Caretaker, and I said since I'd played Mick in production for the BBC and at the National Theatre in London in 1980, I had always thought that one day I would like to tackle Davis. So I said, yes, it's something I want to do. And if I do it, I want to do it back in Liverpool at the Everyman Theatre, where I started work in 1972, 40 years ago this year. And we took that idea to the Everyman, and they welcomed it. And that side of it was something of a sentimental journey for me, in that it was a theatre where I started. It was the theatre where I first directed. I ran the company for a little while. And they were going to pull, well, they have done now, pull the building down and build a new theatre. So I wanted to do one more play in there before, in the old building. I'd worked there, as I said, as an actor, but as a teenager, I'd gone over to Liverpool to hear bands in the mid-60s. I just missed the Beatles. But the Cavern, which is where the Beatles started, and the building of the Everyman Theatre used to be called Hope Hall, and it was a music venue when I first... So I've known it, practically all my life, and it was a chance to go back there and work.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that. It seems that you were revisiting a lot of old haunts in this production, doing it with the Everyman Company or in the Everyman Theatre. Yeah. And then also Davis is Welsh. I know you're from Wales originally. You left young, yes? I mean,
well, I left home like we all do. I'd never felt that I left Wales. But it's where I'm from, North Wales, yeah.
Sure, so I was just wondering sort of what that experience, you spoke of it as a bit of a sentimental journey, what that experience was like, revisiting all of those old haunts, working maybe with people that you worked with in the past.
Yeah, no, there was nobody left. No, it's an entirely new venture now. And it was odd going back. I was thinking of I was going to revisit old haunts, and but I realized that the life I led when I was 20, I suppose I left when I was there when I was 25 at the Everyman, very different to the life I lead now. And people were asking me which pubs did I used to drink in, and what did I used to do in 72, 73. And I had to ask my partner, Kate, who is also an actress, who was also at the Everyman, and I said, where did... I had no memories, very few memories of Liverpool at large. Where did we used to drink? Where did we hang out? She said, well, we were at the theatre all the time, because you'd be rehearsing a show during the day, performing at night, and then drinking in the bar underneath, in the bistro. So anyway, that all still exists, the drinking. Sadly. So it was, but none of the people who I'd worked with in the theatre and the staff, and they'd all moved on and gone.
Okay.
However, what was great going back was that the audience hasn't changed. The makeup of the audience is still very much the same. It's still a very mixed audience, a mixture of young and old. It's not, like many theatres, exclusively a middle-class venture, which is what we strived for in the 70s in Liverpool, was to bring in a new audience. And the company at the time, if you weren't in the play that was being performed that week, or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then you were part of a company called Van Load, which is what it was. We loaded up a van and you took your entertainment to community centres and pubs and tried ultimately to try and get people to come into the theatre. And that ethos still exists in that theatre.
Do you think it's limited to that theatre? Have you encountered it? Do you feel like there are places where that sort of ethos remains alive and well?
Yeah, I mean, the people have been forced to do it more and more and realise it's a very valuable thing to do, because theatre outside of London, regional theatre, is it was abundant in the 70s, and those theatres are few and far between, and they're struggling to survive. So they do go out to audiences. They work with young people. They have often now they'll have a youth theatre attached to the theatre. So yeah, it goes on.
Okay. There was a quote in some article recently, and these things get exaggerated in the news, so I don't know, but that you had said something about the kind of constant Hollywood sequelization being sort of bad for culture, and I just wondered whether you had any thoughts on, we're talking about theaters closing down and people not having access to that outside of London and New York and the middle class, like whether you have any thoughts on sort of the importance of the continuation of
I can't remember saying that about Blockbusters, but because I've been in a few and I hope to be in a few more. I got G.I. Joe 2 coming out this summer, so I'm not against the Hollywood blockbusters. I think probably it goes in cycles and waves, in that the blockbusters will take over and they'll be filling the cinemas all summer, and then somebody will make an independent film that, to everyone's surprise, will make money. And so the studios and independent producers will say that's the way to go now. So they'll start putting money into smaller independent productions until they realize, they're not making any money anymore. And what the mistake is, I think, is that they don't realize it's the product that makes the successful film. It's the script, it's the cast, it's that film. It's not that independent. It's a very simplistic way of putting it. It's not that independent cinema is by its nature successful in what people want to see all the time. Cinema it's been in the doldrums of economically, the past 2 or 3 years, but it is now beginning to pick up again, and I hope it is. I'm being reassured it is. Things are happening. And it all depends if the films are good. If this particular Marvel comic is made into a good film, it'll sell. If it's crap, it's crap, and nobody's going to go and see it. So, but theatre itself is it depends where you go. The West End of London is this year is thriving since we had our economic crash. People went more to the theatre. The box office figures went up. I think it was partly to do with people staying, when I say staying at home, I mean not taking their holidays abroad, staying in the country, being entertained. They want to go out and be entertained. Regional theatre is it's a struggle, and many of the theatres that young actors, when they left drama school, naturally went to to work when they left drama school in the 70s and early 80s. They don't exist. Those opportunities don't exist. Funding was withdrawn from the arts. Huge sums were cut, initially under the Thatcher government, a woman who had no love of theatre and no love of culture, as far as I could see. And they suppressed a lot of the successful theatre in Britain was left-wing theatre, and so they managed to cut off the funding for a lot of left-wing socialist theatres or anything that was trying to tell the truth about society.
So I want to come back to the play that you're in now. Harold Pinter is the caretaker, and to ask you a bit about the journey of your character, Davis. Toward the end, in particular, the emotional roller coaster was very strongly reminding me of King Lear, and I just wonder if you could talk a bit about the character and sort of what the journey is that he goes on.
Well, the unfortunate thing is my next job is I'm playing King Lear, and I think I might have spent all my energy on Davis, and I've said to people that my Lear it'll be the same performance with different words. Do you know? And there may be a lot of truth in that. I know, and also Davis has been in this production has been referred to by critics as a kitchen sink Lear or all that stuff, but. He's on a similar emotional journey, but it depends how you want, as an actor, how you want to interpret it. When I played Mick in 1980, the actor who was playing Davis did it very little crossover with what he did and what I'm doing, and I think I'm responding. A lot of this is in retrospect, because when I was rehearsing it and thinking about it, I didn't think like this. I'm now like being a bit objective about it because people are asking me to talk about it. I don't normally like talking about it, but I think it's a reflection of the times in that homelessness and mental illness. There was a kind of romantic view of the tramp, the hobo, that Davis was in the late 50s. Someone who, that I used to see when I was growing up in Wales, a tramp was someone who'd be literally tramping the highways, walking for miles and miles on end from town to town. And, a gentleman of the road, they were called, and all that stuff. But now homelessness is... it's a much more brutal life. It's much more urban. You don't see people tramping the roads, going from town to town. They're focused on a place where they can get support and help. And it's much harder for the homeless person now than it ever was in the late 50s and 60s, and even when in the 80s when I did it, when I, as I say, played Mick. And the issue of mental illness is now also much more linked to homelessness, because, again, my favourite government, the Thatcher government, and your Reagan government, introduced policies where institutions for the mentally ill were closed down, and people were... They had the phrase for it in Britain, which was care in the community, where people were just let out of hospital, and supposed to be absorbed into society, and get help in smaller institutions, and it worked to a certain extent, and people worked very hard and well in order to help the mentally ill, but. It just means there are more and more people on the streets who need help. And that image, you take it into the caretaker, it makes Davis's journey that he's much more angry than he ever would have been. I do play him because the nature of the piece is that you can, and nature of drama, a lot of the times you soften people up with comedy, and the funnier it is when the darker side comes in, then it amplifies the dark side of the play. That's the hope, anyway. And I think the journey that Davis goes on in manipulating the two brothers to, I mean, yes, he wants somewhere to live, but I think more than that, he wants, it's a corny way of looking, but he wants love. And Christopher Morahan, our director, says that for him it's a play about love, and the love for the two brothers. Davis is desperate for, you know, a relationship with someone, anyone, and so at the end, it's the end of the piece, which I mean, Christopher has made quite enigmatic with this sort of final tableau image, but it is for Davis incredibly desperate. And there was 3 lines he has is with, what am I going to do? What shall I do? Where am I going to go? Is the cry of, you know, millions of people around the world. So it becomes a very universal issue at that point.
It's interesting to hear it expressed as love that he's after, because watching it, you know, for me as an audience member, it was, what struck me was that he was looking for an anchor of legitimacy, or someone to sort of take his side in a sense, which perhaps is the same thing as love.
Yeah, it is. I think it is. Yeah, someone to stand up for you. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, you know, there's sort of old truisms in the American theater about the differences between the British and American styles of acting, which I think are a bit exaggerated perhaps, but I noticed in watching your performance how really seamlessly you blend, you know, you do a lot of detail work in terms of the body of the character. Your hands are shaking, you know, and you're not forgetting to do these things as you're going through the role, and it's animated at the same time by a very real soul. Whereas we sometimes separate actors out, in American actors out into sort of character actors on the one hand, who are good at physical detail work and changing their voices, and then, I don't know, maybe another breed of actors who sort of play themselves. Do you have any thoughts on those differences? No. Are they totally illusory? Or
I think that it all comes down to the individual. I don't think there's a. I think if I tended to notice it more when I first started to work here in the 70s. There was a difference because I think my exposure in the theatre was such that it was, what I did was very varied. I was doing a different play every 5 or 6 weeks, a different character. I came from that theatre gave a huge confidence and a fearlessness to tackle any kind of role. And occasionally with the American actors I worked with hadn't had that broad outlet for their work, and they generally worked with a teacher, worked on their own roles and their own characterizations, often in isolation to the rest of the cast. And it was about presenting your work rather than a shared experience with your other actors. And I'd come very much from the shared experience, and that's not exclusively British or American, but that was something that I was aware of, and I'm still aware of today, especially when you make a film, where it tends to happen more with American actors, is that they will have a coach who will work on their scenes and work on their characters, and they come to work, and whatever anybody says to them, they're going to do their work. They're going to present their character in the way they worked on at home. And it's a bit like, you know, if you practice things in front of a mirror, and it becomes about you rather than the story you're telling or how you relate to your other actor.
Interesting.
It's not everybody. Please, America, I'm not condemning. And I think it makes for a very... Ultimately, I suppose what people are doing, they're trying to survive in a business, a film business, where it's not necessarily about how you relate to the other actor. It's about how you relate to the camera, and providing the director with enough material that they can build a performance and build a story. But I still see it as, to me, it's still like a theatre process. I like to, I don't like talking to a piece of tape on the side of a camera. I'd rather talk to the human being. And yeah, there you go. That's
okay.
Just old-fashioned.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is just about what your thoughts are on, if you have any on this, on why talented, versatile British actors are so often cast as the bad guy in Hollywood movies. You know, you terrified my 12-year-old self as Mr. Dark in Something Wicked This Way Comes. You're scaring a new generation of children in The Pirates of the Caribbean. One of my favorite actors, Gary Oldman, is frequently cast as the bad guy in American movies as well. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Is that simply because the bad guy is hard to play, and so you need to...
No, I don't think so. The bad guy is often the easier role to play, because they're often the best written, because the screenwriter can have fun and indulge, and the good guys react most of the time to that. But I still don't know why. I don't know why I am playing the American president in G.I. Joe 2. I don't know why. I know why. I don't know why. But I play both guys. I play the good president and bad president, and I have scenes with myself which are interesting to do, and I found the other actor I was working with at that time very proficient, knew his lines. He's fine. But I honestly don't know. It's become a kind of historical fact now that British actors on the whole, play the bad guys. I mean, and yeah, I don't know why. It started, I think, because the bad guys were the Germans, and so they needed, we English people, British people could put on a German accent. There's World War II films, play the bad guys. Then we could do Russian accents, and all that stuff. We're aliens, I think. I think we're all foreigners to the Americans.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Jonathan Pryce.
All right.
And we invite our Big Think audience to visit www.bam.org, that's BAM.org, to learn about his performance in Harold Pinter's The Caretaker. That play is running through June 17th. And please check back to bigthink.com to watch additional video clips from our conversation with Jonathan Pryce and to find out about future live interviews with our experts. Thanks for watching, and thanks again, Jonathan, for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.